Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Scooby Snacks and Chats here on the Brazilian Dragon Podcast Network. Now, I am someone who the only witch named Wanda that I acknowledge is the Scarlet Witch from the Marvel Cinematic Universe because this movie was trash, and that's my take. We'll get into it, but I am the Brazilian Dragon Felipe, and I'm not alone. I am joined by someone whose favorite frog is Frog and Toad. Frog, but also she is joined by Scooby-Doo in her own way. It is Lindsay. Lindsay, welcome back to the podcast and welcome to Scooby-Doo.
Every time you ask me to do this, I get so excited. I will never say no.
Even though every single time that you come on, for the most part, it's been the movies that you don't like where it's the supernatural and not the mysteries.
Yes, but that's what's more fun, right? Like if we just came on here and talked about how amazing the Scooby-Doo movie was, like that's not nearly as fun.
Yeah, you want to rip the movie to shreds. And like just to preview to the listeners, Lindsay and we did not enjoy this movie.
Oh, it's so bad.
It was a struggle to get through. And I didn't remember the first one being this much of a struggle. Was it?
No, definitely not. The first one is like you go in knowing it's a Cartoon Network movie. It is what it is. But there's like a nostalgia factor to it. This just not only like if you're a fan of the first one, this one almost has nothing to do with the first one. There are so many storylines that just don't add up if you've seen the first one. And then other than one scene where Daphne and Fred, like a haha moment, are wearing the costumes, the normal costumes that we're all used to seeing different variations of Daphne and Fred in, there isn't really a nostalgia piece to it either.
There's some fun meta stuff. Here's what I'll say. I have a theory why this movie was not good. And if you look at the date it was released, it was like basically a year after the first one. So I think they just scrambled to get a second one done. It filmed in March in Santa Clarita, I think, and then it was released in October. And I'll start with the positives. I liked Scooby-Doo. He made me laugh a couple of times. I appreciated the fact that they were making a live action movie that was authentic to the cartoon series with the cartoon sound effects, Scooby-Doo running through the paint door. And I had one more pro. Oh, the last song was laughably bad and that entertained me. The song, and that was the last good thing about the movie. I really did not enjoy this movie. I think everyone in this movie deserved better. Nichelle Nichols did not deserve to be associated with this trash. Rest in peace, Queen. And she was the senator for one scene. And like I appreciated some of the meta humor, but yeah, this movie was not it. And I'm sure we can get into it when we recap it. But Lindsay, any big pros that you want to start off with besides the ones that I listed, or add on to the ones I listed?
I mean, I just like none of the characters were likable, not even Shaggy. Scooby had his moments. I think he was probably the most likable, and you're right, he did have some funny quips. If I really had to pick one it was only an hour and 22 minutes.
Yeah, and 5 minutes of that was credits.
Literally, yeah, which I didn't watch.
Yeah.
I do think though, I tried to look this up and I couldn't find it. I think it's because if you search canceled third Scooby-Doo movie, it's referring to the live action one with Sarah Michelle Gellar and Freddie Prinze Jr. Do you think the original plan was to make a third
of this franchise with Robbie Amell and Haley Kiyoko?
Yeah,
I'd assume so.
I do too. I don't think it really felt like they were setting up for a third. And if I recall, the first movie, the ratings were fantastic. And then with this, and like people were super excited about it. And with the second one, I remember reading that the ratings weren't very good and people didn't really like it. So I feel like they just put the kibosh on it. But I did feel like they were setting up for a third one.
Yeah, so I'm looking up here. It's had 5.1 million viewers, which is like not bad, but for that era, it was like bad comparatively.
Yeah. Well, again, it's like the anti-High School Musical. I mean, that's an absurd comparison, but imagine if
the second one had like 17 million viewers.
Exactly. Yeah. Imagine if it had gotten less ratings than the first one. That would have been a completely different story.
Yeah, no, I'm just trying. I think they just rushed it, and like this is my take with like all of the industry right now. Like as I mentioned, Wanda Maximoff from the Marvel universe, but like Marvel keeps churning out content faster than they can think of a good story, and it's like not worth the investment if you're not going to have a good story. Because at the end of the day, yes, it is a business, but your business loses money if it's not going to be good. Because you want to tell it for the purpose of the story. I think they didn't. The story was very thin. Like, obviously, we have our own quibbles with the supernatural being the bad guy, but like, there weren't even side characters that much, and
No.
like that's part of the fun of Scooby Doo is like them interacting with the like random one-off characters we never see again, and who could be the suspect. Like,
Right. You knew who, so I remembered from watching it who the suspect was, but I always, like I did with the first one, I tried to watch it from the lens of let's pretend that we don't know. And it's so obvious, and it physically couldn't, or I don't know if physically is the right word, but it mathematically, I don't know what the right word is,
yeah,
but it was impossible for it to not have been Velma because there were no other characters.
yeah, like when the movie first started, so I had never seen this movie before, and I met Daphne's uncle, and I was like, oh, it's him. And then like as the movie went forward, I was like, it might be Velma. And then like when they were basically chasing the witch, and it was like, oh, Velma's not even in this scene. It's obviously Velma.
Yeah.
In hindsight, like from the first scene, it spoiled the movie. Like when they have the like that was actually fun. That was an interesting choice. Like I will give them that. That was like a good choice compared to like the rest of the movie. So it's not saying much. So that's why it stands out to me. But like the fact that they like had them like uncover the person and we were like, it's you. But then in hindsight, it's like, oh, obviously it was Velma.
Yeah. I just there was just it's weird. I felt like there was too much going on while simultaneously nothing going on.
Yeah. Oh, this movie was a struggle to watch. It wasn't the worst Scooby Doo movie I've watched for this project, but that's
Ooh,
saying
what's the
something.
worst one? Arabian Nights, right?
Arabian Nights is offensive, so that is like
Oh,
up
okay.
there. I also really did not enjoy the Boo Brothers in hindsight, which is so
Oh,
sad
I
because I
hated that one
loved
as
the
a
Boo
kid.
Brothers as a kid.
I hated Boo Brothers as a kid. I remember that.
Yeah, but like the only one of this like genre that I enjoy. I mean, Zombie Island is good. Witch's Ghost is good. Like some of these like that aren't in the like that are more supernaturally. They're still good if they were like in the earlier stuff. Like Zombie Island is one of the most popular ones from what I know. But uh Ghoul School is the only one that kind of like can survive the, and that's like also the first hour is so much better than the second hour for that one,
Okay.
or the
Okay.
first half. It's not.
Oh my
Um,
gosh. Wait, Felipe, I have to tell you a story before I forget that's off topic.
Go ahead.
You're the only person who would appreciate this. I've been so
Okay, go
excited to
ahead.
tell you. So I played kickball and this guy joined our team that I didn't know and his name was Melvin. And I was like, "Oh my gosh, like Melvin do." And he was like, "I don't what is that? What does that mean? I don't know you. What is going on?" And I kept asking everyone. I was like, "You guys get that reference, right?" And nobody got that reference. And I was like, "Remember in the Scooby-Doo movie when they're at Spooky Island and they get a phone call and he's like, Melvin do?" And the guy on the phone goes, "No, no, no, they're looking for a Scooby Doo." And everyone's like, "No, nobody is going to remember that scene."
Was his last name due too, or no?
No, it
Okay.
wasn't. Which is why this reference is so absurd. And then I showed everybody the scene, and they're like, "Yeah, nobody's going to remember that. I don't know why you're piecing that together." But I got so excited, and I now call
Listen, you
him.
have found your people, Lindsay. We would all
I know,
appreciate it. The
yeah. And so
James
now I
Gunn
call
heads are
him.
out here.
Yeah, I call him Melvin Do now.
Yeah.
So
You should like if you get jerseys, you should like put it do on his jersey.
yeah.
Um yeah, no, I appreciate you. Also, like the fact that this so I did some research before the podcast. Apparently the original one that we watched last year in June,
Yes.
The Mystery Begins, has been referred to as Scooby-Doo 3. Like even though I don't think it's in the same canon because it's obviously different actors, it's kind of like the prequel of it. But
Yeah.
I don't subscribe to that, even if that's what they've tried to market it as.
Well,
Um,
and that also doesn't make sense because in these two movies there is the supernatural aspect, whereas in the live action, I'm calling it live action, but the good live action movie,
yeah,
the whole thing is they're saying monsters aren't real, monsters aren't real, monsters aren't real. We always prove that monsters aren't real. Oh crap, monsters are real.
yeah.
So that also would make no sense.
Remind me how Scrappy got all the like zombie, like did he do like a spell? Like, because is that supernatural? Because I know at the end of the day it was Scrappy who did it.
Yes.
But like,
I
how did he get them to all be possessed?
Yeah, it was something.
Because I don't mind if there's like a supernatural element as much as you do, because I know you really hate that part. But as long as there's still a mystery involved, that's like my big thing. Like this was not a mystery that like was havocing the town before they arrived. It really started when they arrived.
And they didn't solve it, right?
Yeah.
It just all of a sudden it got revealed to them and they were like, we have been so oblivious to this. This was not even in the realm of possibility.
Yeah, no, because I love the like a lot of the movies and also like the classic episodes will start with like completely removed from the gang. It's like a janitor cleaning the museum hallway and then the monster attacks. Or like in the last one I watched with Nicole, it's like the campfire story is told and the woodsman attacks. Like this is just like they show up, they're walking around, they're like part of the community, and then Velma gets possessed and then like creates the frog monster. It's not like, oh, this was already a thing. And then the fact that they show up is just a convenience because they're like the mystery gang.
Yeah, and to answer your question, I don't exactly remember how he stole everyone's souls, but it involves stealing souls and then
Well,
I
if
don't know.
if I get the chance to steal the remote in the break room, I will be putting on the Scooby-Doo live action because it is a masterpiece.
Oh, it's good.
So I will do that next time I'm at work, and hopefully I can revisit. Also, because like I would like to spend the time and rewatch it because it is that good of a movie.
Oh, I love
But
it.
I don't think I have the time to do that tonight. So,
No.
yeah. So do you want to start like breaking down the plot, and then like I'll
Yeah.
probably jog your memory of other things that frustrated you?
Yeah, let's go. I mean, I took some notes.
Yes. Oh, I love the Lindsay notes.
Oh, yeah.
Because did you also write down more stuff about fashion? Because that's always the thing with you. You always love the fashion.
I did
Okay,
because I had
good.
some grief, some
All right.
gripes.
So we start off, and the gang minus Velma catch the culprit, and they're all like shocked, and then Scooby's eyes go wide, which I liked. Like we'll talk about how like specifically with Scooby, but throughout the movie, there's like a cartoony aspect, which I did appreciate because it's like, okay, this is if it was like a live action version of the cartoon. They even had an Acme paint bucket, which is like big in the Hanna-Barbera cartoons, right? Or
Mhm.
is that like a real thing? I'm googling it because I'm pretty sure
Which
it's
by the
not.
way, which by the way,
Oh, it's from the
that
Looney Tunes. Yeah,
yeah, and by the way, that one scene gave away who the villain is.
yeah, because you see the other four members of the gang being like, "It's you," and we
Yeah.
haven't even met any of the other characters yet.
No.
But like
So,
in hindsight, I'm kind of dumb for not picking up on that. But I didn't really realize Velma was not in that scene yet, so
yeah.
I'll give myself the benefit of the doubt. But I felt dumb in that moment afterwards. But then we get the 1 week earlier little Chiron, and Shaggy is like waiting for bell to ring, and then the clock rewinds, which I was like, this is in hindsight, now that I'm talking out loud, it's like, okay, this is obviously they need a couple extra seconds of footage. They are padding the runtime to hit that 90-minute mark, and so they can add commercials.
Yeah.
But we get them, and then Shaggy's dancing in the daydream. And at this point is when I texted you, it's a musical, because I didn't even realize this. And then we don't even get to the musical numbers yet, because this is a fake one. But I was like, is this a musical? Which in hindsight, it probably would have been better as a musical.
And if we're gonna make it a musical, can we have how do you pronounce her last name? Haley Kiyoko?
I think it's kind of like, yeah, have her
Okay.
sing.
Have her. Why is she not singing? She's the only person I would want to have sing.
Speaking of her, we have some headlines in the Haley Kiyoko cinematic universe.
Ooh.
I don't believe you are a Wizards of Waverly Place.
Oh, I know what you're about to talk about.
Yeah.
I know what you're about to talk about.
The creator confirmed that Alex Russo was a bisexual queen, and she and Stella, played by Haley Kiyoko, were like supposed to be in a relationship, but that didn't fly with Disney at the time. But he revealed that this week, and then the TikTok that Haley Kiyoko did a while ago, where she's like, "You're not straight, Stella. Look at this hair." People were like talking about that again, but we have some news for the Scooby-Doo podcast, which is timely.
Yeah.
You weren't a Wizards of Waverly Place person, right?
No,
That
it was
might have been
after.
Yeah.
Like I was watching the last season of Hannah Montana as like a junior in high school, and I feel
As
like
you should.
Wizards, yeah, and
Yeah.
Wizards came when did Wizards come?
Wizards was like 2007 or 8, and then it ended in like 2012, I want to say. So I was on and off with like parts of the last season. Like I
Yeah.
haven't seen every single Wizards episode, but I've seen almost every episode.
So I feel like it came out then where I was finishing up the shows I did like on Disney, but not
Yeah,
looking to
you
start
weren't.
shows on
Yeah,
Disney.
you were like, that's how I feel about Good Luck Charlie. Like I finished that, but I wasn't starting the stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like, um, no, I love Wizards. I think that's possibly my favorite Disney Channel show. There's like a couple up there. Hannah Montana's up there. Zach and Cody up there. But like Wizards, just the fact that like most of them were Latino actors, and then
Yeah.
it was a Latino family that like
Yeah.
was important to me.
I love that.
But it like upon reflection, of course.
Yeah.
But I've also actually started listening to there are two rewatch podcasts right now that are interesting from that era. Wizards for me, but then Ned's Declassified, which I think you would actually enjoy that podcast.
I think I listened to the first episode. Lindsay, what's her name?
Goff?
Just drives me nuts. And
Yeah.
my heart breaks for her because she has gone through some stuff and I'm
Yeah.
very empathetic, and it's just, I don't know, there's something about her that I had to block her on TikTok because she kept appearing on my
Oh,
feed. And I
no.
was like,
Yeah.
I don't want this. I can't watch you every day.
Devin Werkheiser was actually at the Bryson Wendell party, apparently.
Well, I mean, he has nothing else to do.
He also like so I've been binge listening while I was like doing other stuff. It's kind of background noise. Apparently he was in the Rust movie.
He like finally gets a job and then someone dies on the movie. And so now no one's gonna go see it because who can stomach watching that movie?
Yeah. Yeah, no, and he was talking about that on the last episode. But like it's more stories about their life, and like they like had a whole episode about like when Devin got, what's the guy who plays Cookie, Daniel, to like smoke his first joint, and I was like, oh, this is more interesting than the recap of the Ned stuff. Like,
oh yeah,
like tell me more of like the stories about like obviously you're gonna be like, oh, we had fun, we were kids on a set.
Yeah.
But do you think this cast had fun? The Scooby-Doo Lake?
Oh, you know what I usually do, and I didn't do it. You know what? I'm gonna do it while I'm talking to you. Sometimes when I'm watching old stuff, I like to see who from it follows each other on Instagram.
Ooh.
So I've researched the OC cast. Like none of them really follow.
Ooh.
I think they do now that they've gone on and done that recap podcast. But let's see, like if I'm just gonna look and see
Haley Kiyoko and like do like Nick Pilatus or Kate Melton, because like maybe she follows Robbie Amell.
Haley does follow Robbie Amell.
But like Robbie Amell is also, is it him or his cousin that is the Green Arrow?
Green as his cousin.
But Robbie Amell's an Upload. Like he's a big name. He's a big enough name.
What's Daphne's last name? Kate what?
Melton, Melton.
Not her.
Oh, she doesn't follow her?
No. And then Nick, no.
Pilatus.
No. So just Robbie Amell. I feel like they had to know the second one. They're like, oh, okay,
they felt like if they were forced to be there again, like I feel like they probably had fun with like what they were trying to do, but like they were trying to do their best with the lousy script. This also gives like it was done in 2 weeks.
Yeah, it definitely gives those. You know what? It gives me the same vibes as like Cheaper by the Dozen 2, where you watch that and you were like, okay, there's no way Hilary Duff was on this set for longer than like a week.
Yeah. A lot of the cast was also separated, like so you could tell like I mean Haley Kiyoko was like comparatively barely in the movie, and then Robbie Amell and Kate Melton were kind of by themselves for a lot of time, so they could like really film this like.
Yeah, and you know, that reminds me of one of the points that I didn't like about this movie is Scooby had like no interactions with anybody except for Shaggy.
He was probably the most expensive cast member.
Yeah, he was not like, there was no Freddy Shaggy scenes, or they didn't feel like a group. It just felt like there's these 4 people and then Shaggy talks to Scooby, and that's really Scooby's only interactions.
Yeah. That said, Scooby did crack me up a couple times. Like I appreciated, like this felt like the most in line with the James Gunn Scooby-Doo movie, where Scooby was hilarious in those 2 films. And this felt the most like connected to like that live action universe. But I feel like the first, I remember the first one was not this bad. I think I gave it like a 3.5, and you still gave it like a 1.5 just because it was like not the same. But like you still enjoyed it enough to like get like it was watchable.
Yeah. What
This
were
was
your
borderline unwatchable.
This is yeah. So they right off the bat they reveal Daphne and Fred are a thing because we catch
Yeah,
them
because they're
making
making
out
out
in
of
the
the van.
car. What were your thoughts on that?
Um, I at first I was thinking about like what how did they leave the last movie? Because I remember they were like a little. I probably could find my notes.
I could tell you.
Yeah,
So in the first one, what ends up happening near the end is that like Daphne and Fred have kind of been flirting, and then Daphne makes Velma hot, and then all of a sudden the guys are like, "Whoa, who's
yeah, and
this?"
Fred needs to be bonked.
Yeah, and then so Daphne gets jealous because Velma says, "Oh, I actually think Fred's kind of cute." Remember, she like accidentally pokes her when
Yeah.
she's or something, and then because she gets jealous, and Fred has a moment with both the girls, and it's kind of left unresolved. So I very, very vividly remember going into this movie thinking like, "Dope, we're gonna get this love triangle. We're gonna get this is gonna be
Yeah.
interesting," and it's as if none of that happened.
I want to. I'm gonna Google. I'm gonna Google see how much overlap there was with the creative team for this movie as well as the last movie.
Like it's legit, and so when they're explaining how they got together, for a moment I thought Velma was asking, like she sounded a little jealous, but then I realized, oh no, she's just asking. It's as if none of the events from the last movie happened.
Yeah. No. So this is the same screenwriter, same director. It's just yeah. It was probably too rushed. Like they probably didn't, or maybe they just was never supposed to be good. Like even if they had 3 years, it was not going to be good. Who knows?
No, that really upset me. Like it just didn't make sense. It felt rushed. It didn't feel organic. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, we end
Oh,
up.
and
Go ahead.
even when she explains the moment they had that made them realize they liked each other, I'm like, no, there was a completely different moment in the
Yeah,
first
just like
movie. It
use
doesn't
the
make
old
sense.
footage. What? This was a waste of time. You could have used the time you filmed the barn stuff in like making the script better.
Yep, I agree.
But so we find out I didn't care to write the guy's name down. Like, so how I do the process, I watch the movie on my own and then I speed watch it while I take notes on as a rewatch because it's all fresh. I can kind of like pick and choose what I want to write down. When I was writing, I was like, I'm not going to write down the name of this barn owner. Who cares? He's not relevant.
Yeah.
But they have to work summer jobs to pay him back.
Which I was so confused. I was like, weren't they helping him solve a mystery? Did they not have his permission to go in the barn?
Yes.
Like, what am I not understanding?
But Uncle Thorny, Daphne's uncle, gets them summer jobs at his country club. And we get Trauberg's owner of the lake. Oh, sorry, I'm ahead of my notes. This movie is so bad that I skip parts of the scenes. They had the little map thing where that was like a cool little feature.
And I thought it was really funny when it just made me remember how old this movie is, where Daphne asked Fred, "Did you print out the directions that I sent you?"
Yeah, no, because that point we didn't have iPhones. Or wait, no, we probably had iPhones. It just wasn't like as advanced as
Yeah,
it
it
is now.
wasn't as common.
Yeah. So we get to Trauberg's owner, their like bait shop basically, and she warns of the lake monster and how it's returning to Erie Point, which is where they're working. Have you ever been to Lake Erie?
I have not.
Me neither. But apparently it's lit according to this movie. But we get Velma, who is so they are there, and she like points out that there's like this curse. And then they get to the country club, and Shaggy is trying to unload the Scooby Snacks, the big stash, and he falls backwards. And Velma catches him in the same way that Daphne was caught by Fred, and he becomes smitten for Velma. And what you think, Lindsay? Also, at this moment in time, after you say that, I have to ask you a question, but let me get your opinions on that first before I change this topic.
Wait, sorry. The question is,
what'd you think of Shaggy falling into Velma's arms and Shaggy's
yeah.
crush on Velma?
Okay, yeah. Sorry, I was thinking about the next question.
You're good.
Yeah, that felt really forced. Again, I guess that kind of if we're complaining that storylines from the first movie don't fall into this one, there is a moment in the first one when Velma gets quote unquote like has her she's all that moment where she's all of a sudden hot. And Shaggy's like, ooh. So I guess there was an attraction in the first movie, but it just felt so random and forced
Yeah.
and like you fell in love with her because she helped you. I don't
Yeah,
understand.
it's just like if that's how people fall in love, then people can start falling into my arms more often because
Right.
I am ready. I want a future, a romance. I know Lindsay probably wants a romance too. So let's just start catching people.
I completely agree. It was
Yeah.
just it just didn't make I don't know.
Now, follow up. This is slightly related. Did you watch Velma,
I
the
did
show?
not. The review well, as soon as I heard Scooby wasn't in it, I'm like, I'm not watching this.
Yeah.
And then the reviews were so bad. I'm like, I'm
You're
now
not a big Mindy Kaling person, anyways, right?
I love The Sex Lives of College Girls.
Okay, I need to watch
I
that still. I've heard
Oh,
great
it's
things.
so
I
good.
need to watch it, but
Yeah,
there's
it's
just so much
fantastic.
stuff.
It's absolutely fantastic, but I also don't think she's a writer on that show. I think she's just a creator.
I like
Um,
Never Have I Ever. Also, I don't know
I
if you've watched
haven't
that.
seen that. Obviously,
You
love
don't
her on
give
the
high school show person like these days. You don't seem like the person who's going to go back and watch current high school stuff.
No, I think it gives me PTSD.
Yeah.
I think I'm like, don't do this dumb thing, or I think like, oh, you did that, and that's why you have all these issues. I will say though, I am absolutely obsessed with wanting to know whether or not BJ Novak is the father of her children.
Yeah.
I would give anything to know that.
She doesn't post photos of her kids, right?
No,
Which
but
is
she
valid. Like I
also
know a lot of parents don't do that. Like
no,
show their
yeah,
kids.
but she's also there's no father on the birth certificate. Like it's a whole thing.
Um, yeah, no, I'm curious, not as curious as you, because
Oh,
I
I would
would
give
not
up
pay money for
anything
it,
for it.
but I know Lindsay is fascinated by it. No, we can talk. I talked a little bit about Velma, but like the first few episodes were a struggle, but like they weren't as bad as this movie. I'll give it that. But it didn't feel like authentic to the origins. That said, it does get better, and there was a cohesive narrative, and it was interesting what they were trying to do. I just didn't enjoy it as much as I had wanted to enjoy it. But it is going to get a second season. I'll check that out when it comes out. It was renewed before like the first episode dropped, I think, for a second season. But to be fair to Mindy, she was also just the EP. She wasn't like a writer on this. And she was the voice of Velma, of course. But yeah, I just wanted to get your takes. I'm going to be asking all my guests that if they checked out Velma at all because I want to know what people thought. I enjoyed Velma more than I enjoyed this movie.
Well, that's not a high bar, but
After I finish all the movies, should I rewatch Velma for the podcast or not put
you
myself through
should.
that?
It's all things Scooby Doo.
Okay. Yeah, because there's just
You don't
so
have to
much
do all
content
the
out.
episodes, but at least the pilot or something.
Yeah, I'll do a couple episodes of like all the big ones, maybe.
Yeah.
That's a future me problem. But yeah, so I just wanted to get your perspective. Great voice cast for Velma, though. I will say they like pulled through like a lot of comedians show up. Nicole Byer has a prominent role, and I love her. I know you're a big Taylor Tomlinson fan. She wasn't in it, unfortunately, but there's like a lot of comedians in this, so it's fun in that sense. Like every time I was like, oh my god, that's so and so. But there's a big plot line where Norval, as he's called in the show, is into Velma. So that's why this reminded me of it.
Well, and I like in Where Are You, Scooby Doo? I feel like that was the perfect level. And I feel like they couldn't do that on shows these days where the attraction between Daphne and Fred was always there enough that you were like, you could sense it. They just never really pulled the trigger. And
Yeah.
then I love the way they tiptoed around Velma and Shaggy. Like I remember there was one episode where there's a school dance and Shaggy and Velma are dancing, and there's clearly they're not attracted to each other, but the show at least like I don't know makes it like this could be a thing, but
Yeah.
we're not actually gonna do it because no, but it's
Because we
enough.
all know Velma's a lesbian anyways.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
which they did explore in the show as well. And I think there was like since we talked, there was like an article that was basically like, yeah, Velma's canonically gay. Get with the
Yeah.
program.
Yeah.
I had one more. Oh, one Mindy Kaling project that I do love is the movie Late Night. I absolutely adore that movie.
Never heard of it.
No, it's with one of the guys from Veep. I forget his name. But it also has Emma Thompson. It's like basically she's like a woman late night talk show host, and Mindy Kaling's trying to be a writer for it. It's a fun movie. I liked it. I saw it
Okay.
in theaters twice.
Wow.
Because I did not want to see Yesterday within 24 hours of seeing it again. So, anyways, where were we? So Fred is very casual when Shaggy asks him, "Oh my God, Christina, what are you doing?"
She's trying to get attention.
Fred is very casual when Shaggy asks him for advice. Daphne is like, "Oh, we're boyfriend girlfriend."
Very Grease.
Mhm.
Like, tell me more. Tell me more.
Are you gonna watch Rise of the Pink Ladies?
I'm not. No.
I see trailers for that sometimes when I'm watching Paramount Plus. I'm like,
I just don't. I'm not a big prequel person. I
yeah,
think a lot of times, look, sometimes it works. But I think most of the time what's fun about these movies is like
the
not
mystery.
having all the details. Like I know Joker literally won Joaquin Phoenix an Oscar, but to me, when I watch the
Dark Knight.
thank you, half the fun is the Joker tells like 7 different iterations of how he got his scars and how he became to be, and we don't know the truth behind it. That's what makes the Joker the Joker. And then you put out a movie like Joker, and then now the mystery's gone. I don't need every origin story ever told.
And there are some that like elevate the source material. Like I will defend Better Call Saul till the day I die.
Yes.
But like we don't need all these things to like start going and prequelizing. Like there's gonna be a Mufasa prequel. I don't need to know that.
I don't need to know that.
And it's gonna be live action too. We don't want that.
No, and I'm gonna watch Mufasa and be like, your life ends in a really tragic way. So any good things happening to you right now, buddy, like enjoy them because it's coming.
Yeah. I'd rather a sequel than a prequel.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I'm 100% the same.
But yeah, so Velma and Shaggy end up going to the beach. Velma finds the moonstone. She touches it and immediately gets sick.
Yes.
At this point where you're like, oh, she's possessed.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Scooby is walking around with the camera. I guess he's making a scrapbook because the end credit sequence is Scooby's scrapbook. But he's at the buffet and the frog monster attacks. And this is where Nichelle Nichols is, which if you don't know, she was on Star Trek. She passed away last year, to the listeners. And I'm like, they do not deserve her presence in this movie.
No.
Yeah. I'm upset that she's like, maybe she had fun. I hope she had fun. That's how I'm getting through this. But that's probably where like the budget should have gone. That's yeah. But yeah, so the frog monster attack. What do you think of the frog monsters?
So I thought it was weird, and I don't remember if it was in this scene or maybe later, but where Fred keeps saying there's no such thing as lake monsters, there's no such thing as lake monsters, and Daphne's like, well, I don't want to get close enough to find out if there are. And I'm sitting here thinking, you literally just dealt with ghosts. Like, why are you acting like this is so out of the realm of possibility when you just dealt with real life ghosts? That to me made absolutely no sense.
It's wild.
Are we just pretending that entire first movie didn't happen?
And now that I know it's the same screenwriters and directing team, I'm like, do you not care about continuity at all?
No, but they acted like, I don't know, it's weird. They acted like they were friends, but that their friendship wasn't based on that they literally solved a very real ghost mystery. I don't know.
There's nothing about them reading books. Wasn't that the whole thing that bonded them, like detective stories? Like there was nothing about not murder mysteries.
No.
Budget, but like
no. And also Fred, at this point, I'm just like, you are a major douche. Like you have at this point, Fred has no redeeming qualities to me.
Yeah. No, Fred, we like Robbie and Mel. We did not like Fred.
No, not even remotely.
So the gang talks to Elmore Uggins, who is the only known man to have photographed the frog monster. And while they're going through there, Velma mentions the song "By the Light of the Silvery Moon," which is, as she says, a vaudevillian ditty And then Shaggy sings it, and then this is when I was like, oh, it actually is a musical, because this is like a little vaudeville song that turns into heavy metal. Don't like it.
Yeah.
But this is going to be a key part of the movie, so like I was just like, oh, they're just singing a random song, because like I was not really paying attention to the movie that much the first watch. um and then Daphne and Fred they're worried about Shaggy, and unbeknownst to them, they have given him opposite advice. Elmer was actually dressed up as Frog. They unmasked him, and he's like, oh, I just wanted to do it because I would get money. And I assume you haven't seen the show Gravity Falls.
No.
No, but the whole concept of Uncle Stan or Grunkle Stan, who's like it's about these two twins who go and live with their uncle for a summer called in this town called Gravity Falls, and he's basically like a con artist like store a gift shop store owner, and who profits off of like the like fake like conspiracies of Gravity
Mm,
Falls, or like kind of like the cryptids, like the Bigfoot, and like he'll have like Bigfoot swag, but like in that universe. So this is
okay.
just what he was giving me flashbacks to.
Yeah, and again, this didn't really do anything for the plot. Like,
Yeah,
it wasn't that all of a sudden we thought it was this guy and it turns out it's not, and now we have a new suspect. It was just, let's ask this guy a question. Oh, it's not
yeah.
him.
Again, padding the runtime.
Yeah, 100%.
Just while we're talking about Gravity Falls, quick plug for the Gravity Bros podcast on the Brazilian Dragon Podcast Network. Uh,
Oh.
there we go. Just not even like intentionally, but when it comes up, I'm gonna do that. So now we get the cave lady Wanda. We get the flashbacks. That's what comes of
Yeah.
this. But this was all like done in like weird, like wonky. Like it was like a couple frames of footage, and then it would cut to like this whole like it wasn't even done like a full flashback like Scooby-Doo
No.
tends to do. Like they will have like the grayscale flashback of what happens. But this
Yeah,
this was not giving justice to the original cartoons.
absolutely not.
But basically, the story is that she made this warning to all the settlers. They didn't listen. She attacked with the frog ladies. They ended up burning Wanda at the stake, and now she has returned to finish her prophecy. Which, on the one hand, like, pop off, Wanda. They should not be
Yeah.
settling your land. But
No.
also, like, this movie should not exist. I'm
Also,
conflicted.
that is so dark. They burned her alive?
Yeah.
What? That is so dark.
Oh, there was also like some like analogies to slavery in this. Like Scooby basically felt like Shaggy's servant at times, and the way
Yeah.
that Shaggy talked to him, I was like, I don't like this. It's
It was
giving me the ick.
Yeah, and it's just weird because if you're gonna I mean, not to get like too deep because it's not a deep movie, but if you're gonna make it political, which you kind of are when you're talking about settlers and burning witches alive and blah blah blah, you don't make the victim the bad guy.
Also, if you're gonna make this kind of movie, make it in the correct state. This is a New England type story. This is not a Michigan. The witches were in Salem, Massachusetts.
I didn't put any of this together until we just discussed it. This is Yeah, they literally were like, okay, this woman was robbed of her land and she's totally the victim, and then they murder her. We're gonna make the murderer the bad person,
Justice
the
for
evil.
Wanda. What's her last name? Grubwort. Justice for Wanda Grubwort.
God, I hate this movie even more now that I'm piecing all
Yeah.
of this together. God.
I hate this movie that it's making me root for this ugly witch, but she deserves the support because her land was stolen from her.
Yeah, no. I cannot believe they made this poor woman who was burned to death the evil person with no redeeming qualities. Like,
Mm-hmm.
they could have at least done it where, Wanda, you were wronged. Like, we want you to be free and be in peace. Like, please don't do this. And I don't know, she gets some sort of, I don't know, she goes to heaven. I don't
I
know.
bet this was it seems like a pair of brothers that wrote this movie. It's Daniel and Stephen Altieri. It's giving white man.
Yeah, like, I cannot believe. Yeah, they could have given that. And instead they're just like, nope, back to hell.
Yeah. I'm trying to look up. Okay, so the director's a white man, and I'm gonna look up these brothers. Anything else from like the scene with the Uggins?
No.
Yeah, they're all white. So, uh, I don't think they have a concept of, or they might now, but at the time they definitely weren't aware, which it's frustrating and making me dislike this movie more now that we discussed it as
Yeah.
well. So we see the next day that Fred is flirting with some girls at golf. And Daphne sees it and is pissed because Shaggy also was like, "Yeah, Fred gave me some advice, like play the field, basically."
Yeah.
Um, and
So
then
mean.
Velma is, they get interrupted because, well, so first then Fred and Daphne have a confrontation, and then she's like super dramatic. She like says something, something, and then kisses him passive aggressively, and then leaves. And then he's
Mhm.
like, "Oh, like president of the drama club for sure."
Yeah. Which okay. There's some that was referenced in the first movie. So I
I
guess
thought that was a choice. I don't know if I loved the choice, but I was like, okay, Kate Melton, you make a strong decision. That is like an acting choice that
yeah.
I believe she thought about.
Yeah.
I
But
still
the
have to think
whole
about it.
she's the president of the drama club that was mentioned in the first movie.
Yeah, so that's continuity, which we also like.
Continuity, yes. Big fan.
And then we see Velma, she caught the security footage, and then she sees that, oh, they're like, oh, zoom in, you can see who it is, just zoom in closer, closer. And then she spills her green tea and it short circuits the footage, which I don't think that's how it works, but okay. Pop off, Wanda the witch. um so uh we later seen a flashback that Velma like is smiling about it, so I'm curious if they filmed that footage then, knowing
Yeah.
the plot, or they were still cobbling the script together by that point when they were filming this scene.
Yeah. I feel like they wrote it as they went along.
Yeah. Um. So Daphne and Fred are very loosey goosey with their, according to Fred, and there's a lot of tension. At this
A
point,
lot.
kind of Velma disappears for most of the movie, except for the date.
Yeah.
Um, so Scooby, I did like that. So Scooby's arc this whole movie is that he's mad that Shaggy is more into Velma, and it's kind of like abandoning Scooby as his friend. And Scooby is like, okay, let's go get some midnight snacks. And Shaggy doesn't even understand him, which I was like, Shaggy would always understand Scooby in the
Yeah.
cartoon.
Yeah.
Um,
Absolutely.
what'd you think of the sandwich? It was like
That was gross.
bread with like some deli
Anything with
meat,
mayonnaise makes me ew, I
pickles.
think it's gross.
But it also looked like it had like some sweet. It looked atrocious.
Yeah, it looked disgusting. And again, this would have been a really cool like if Scooby's getting jealous, have him talk to Fred and have Fred be like, "Dude, you don't have to worry about," or something.
Like put
But
Scooby with a different character. Like put him with Daphne or Fred for sure,
yeah, show the bonding with
or put
other
him with
characters.
Lindsay.
Yeah.
How
Um,
big is this Scooby?
it's so for reference, this is okay. So that's me standing.
Oh my god, he's like half your height. Oh
Yeah.
my god, he's giant.
Yeah.
What
My
is your friend
friend My
doing? Like
friend
what
won him
carnival
at the
game?
fair last year, and she was gonna get something for a little kid, and I was like, "Can you give me the Scooby?" And
What
then
it? What was the game?
Bottle Up.
Okay.
And it's really funny because her fiance, who's like my best friend, I play kickball with him. He's like a fair. He worked at the fair. He's good at all the games. He literally built replicas of the games and trains people how to do well. And she is now good at the games. And she's just this like sweet girl from Michigan who I
From
don't
Lake
think ever.
Erie?
I should ask her. If who never thought she'd be good at carnival games, but my Scooby. Also, I promised her that if I ever got a boyfriend, I would donate it. And as you can
To me?
see, it is still here.
Okay. Well, you should donate it to me.
I will happily do that.
But for now, you can have Scooby until that day arrives, because then I will give it back to you if for whatever reason you need him back.
Oh no, I wouldn't trust me. I would need him back for that reason.
um, where were we? We get Daphne at the tennis game at night, and
Yeah.
Fred gets jealous, but like throughout the
I
movie, he
loved
doesn't.
that. I love that for Daphne. They made it seem like she did something, which I don't like. They ended up making it act like she did something wrong. That's 100% what I would do.
We also didn't see her do anything. She was just playing tennis with the
No,
guy.
like she's making out with them or
Yeah.
like rubbing their leg.
But yeah, no. So then we get the big frog attacking, and they start punching it, fighting it. They realize the frog is real. Scooby ends up saving everyone, and he drives Shaggy down to the beach. And they fly into the sand thing. This is also where they have the costumes that you mentioned earlier, the Fred and
Mhm.
Daphne vintage costumes. Anything you want to add about that?
I mean, that was fun. That was the one nostalgic moment in the entire movie. I liked it.
I wonder, like, if they, because did we get any Velma costume vintage or Shaggy ones?
No, and the outfits that they wear, because they're most of the time wearing their work outfit, so it's
Mhm.
not even. I mean, like Daphne has her headband, but it's not purple.
Yeah,
And
I
so
did
that's
notice
why
when they were. Go ahead.
I was gonna say that there really isn't much to talk about with the fashion because they are literally wearing their work outfits all the time, and it looks nothing like what we know them for.
The times that they're wearing regular clothing, they are in like very coordinated colors. So Fred is blue, Daphne purple, Velma
Yeah.
orange, Shaggy green. But it's very um it's not common in this movie.
Mm-mm.
I also noticed so I saw the Fred and Daphne costumes like early on in the scene, like before they even wore them. I was like, oh,
Oh,
that's
okay.
cool. I wonder if they're gonna have Shaggy and Velma, which they did not. Um, now, we they go looking for Velma. It takes them until morning to find Velma, which like
Yeah.
okay.
I would
Um,
just assume my friend is dead at that point. I would have gone to
yeah,
the police, by the way.
yeah, I would have gone to the beach first.
Yeah.
Like look around the whole area. They probably did not start with the beach.
No.
Um, but so we see that uh the frogs attack. Oh, Wanda also confronts. So we have this whole scene where like Wanda is like yelling at the frog. That's also something, and they see it from the costume shop. Velma is at the beach in the morning. She has these nasty warts on her hands.
Yeah.
Uh, I
Which
did
they
not like
just
it.
kind of like blinked and were like, "That's weird." Yeah.
Yeah, I
Whatever.
would like take her to a doctor ASAP.
Literally. I would
But
have full panic.
yeah, but we get the purple on the SS Daphne, the pink. So
Yeah.
when they are driving to Michigan, they see the SS Daphne, as Shaggy called it, which is this boat in the water. And they notice that the pink, I don't even remember how, but like something is connected to the pink paint, and they like are like, oh, let's go check it out.
Yeah.
But at this point, Scooby, oh, sorry, no. So they formed this doc plan, and Shaggy is like, "Let me get on my knees and ask Velma out on a date." And she's kind of like letting him down gently, and he's like, "Oh, I get it. You would never want to go out with someone like me. I probably wouldn't want to go either." And he walks away sadly. And then Velma's like, "Actually, I'll go on a date with you, Shaggy."
But
And
again, I
go ahead.
so made no sense. Why was she so against it? And then all of a sudden, like, yeah, actually, yeah, it sounds like a great idea. Unless that
At this,
was
the witch.
part of the witch, but that also doesn't really make sense because I don't know what benefit the witch
Yeah, that's the
would
only
have.
thing that like makes logical sense, but it's also like it doesn't make any logical sense. Like,
No, no.
um, I mean, like at that point, you've already made him sad. Like most, he's just. I feel like she. It's naive of him to think she would actually change her mind at that point. Like maybe
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't know. It just was weird.
So we get Scooby trying to tag along. He's wearing a tie and he's super excited. He made me laugh at this point. And then he was like, Shaggy's like, oh, it's just gonna be me and Velma. And Scooby gets pissed.
Pissed.
Um, so he daydreams of this Christmas, which I was like, oh, Nutcracker Scoop. Um, where Shaggy and Velma have gotten married, and they adopt a new puppy, and Scooby's just shaking out of the winter. I was like, okay, this is kind of funny because it's so random and doesn't belong in this movie at all. But I thought it
Also,
was
one
kind of.
date that she didn't really want to go on.
And Scooby is like Stevie. He's like getting ready to fight. So then he's like puppy love. So Fred, meanwhile, continues to be jealous of the tennis, and they start going over to the docks. We'll come back to that story in a second. We get this empty restaurant date because everyone's left town because the
Yeah.
frogs. And Scooby ends up being the waiter, and he's like, "Let me get the water." He's like, in French, he's pouring the water, and before this, we also see Shaggy light the match so that he can light the candle, and Velma
Mhm.
jumps and freaks out
Yeah.
and drops her glasses. Um, and later, he's like, "Oh, this makes sense why she's afraid of fire." I'm like, she might just be afraid of fire. It doesn't have to be connected to the witch, but it was because the witch
Yeah.
has trauma, understandably.
Which again, yet she's somehow the bad guy.
Mhm. Um, so we Scooby ends up. This what felt out of character, and this is the most I feel like character assassination that happens to Scooby in this movie, and maybe like
Yeah.
any of the characters. Honestly, is Scooby biting Shaggy. It wasn't on camera, but it was inferred. And I was like,
Yeah.
Scooby-Doo would never do this. Even if he's mad at Shaggy,
No.
he wouldn't bite a human. That's like
No, that
out of
dogs
character.
dogs get put down for that kind of
Mhm.
stuff. Like, they wouldn't do that.
We know where Scooby started. He was in the like animal shelter at the start of the series, according to the last movie of Continuity Matters. So why would he do that to like his best friend, let alone like his owner, when he knows where he's come from?
Yeah.
Um, any other thoughts on the restaurant date?
Were there waiters working? Like, how did Scooby get in there? Where were it just seemed
Was
like
he the
were they
chef too? Because
yeah,
like they had
that
like
makes sense to
a
me.
lady bring them to their table, right?
I think so.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I
Just
thought that was weird, but just the whole thing
yeah.
made me
We
uncomfortable.
then see also Scooby and Shaggy fighting, like fist fights after Velma leaves when Shaggy gives her the Moonstone, which then completes her scepter. And this was another cartoony. They had like the dust clouds, and the Foley artists were like doing the like swinging arm sounds from cartoons, which is like the stuff from this movie that like worked for me of all the things because most of it didn't work.
Yep.
Um, we get Fred and Daphne. They are exploring the boat. They are bickering the whole time. One of the frogs traps them into like one of the closets, and they're bickering and they're trying to break up with each other. It's very childish. Fred ends up breaking the window and saving them. And
Yeah.
they're like, and then they go into Shaggy's room, and Scooby's painting the line to divide. And I did think this was funny when then Shaggy's like, oh, what happened to you all? And they were like, we broke up. No, I broke up with you. And then
Yeah.
Shaggy's like, I mean, why are you wet? And then
Yeah.
they like have a conversation, and then Scooby pops his head and it's like, you're on my side of the room. And that would totally be me.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. I thought there was potential with the Scooby, Shaggy relationship, but it was just so poorly done. Or the dynamic of like, of course, I can understand why Shaggy, if she's just used to this guy constantly giving him essentially his savior, right? He saved him from a life on the street alone. I can understand why he would get jealous of another person. However, that's why I don't like that the movie didn't explore his relationship with the other characters, because if you look at the other, like, the cartoon shows and whatnot, Scooby wouldn't get jealous because he's
Didn't
not as
Scooby?
close, but
Yeah,
he's still very close to Daphne, and he's still very close to Velma, and again, it felt like instead of them all being a team, suddenly Shaggy has to choose between Velma and it was so poorly done. I mean, but the potential was there. I think it
didn't
could have been a good
Scooby?
storyline.
He got jealous of Shaggy in the live action one, right? With Isla Fisher, like when
Yes, you're right. He
okay,
did. But see, she wasn't Velma. She was a
yeah,
completely outside person. And the difference was as well,
it was good
I
writing.
think she was she was possessed. And
Yeah,
Shaggy and Scooby was trying to tell him she's possessed, and he's not believing her. So I think if Scooby had said, I think it's Velma, or I think there's the witch is Velma, Velma's the bad guy, something like that, then and Shaggy ignored it, that would have made more sense to me.
yeah. No, it's frustrating that the potential was squandered with a movie like this when this is
Yeah.
an interesting theme they could play with more. We'll see if it comes up again.
Yeah.
But I hope if it does come up, then Scooby goes and hangs out with Daphne for the day or something. Like,
Yeah.
um, but we get so in the mirror. This is Shaggy's best moment of crime solving in many movies. He is like, "Oh, isn't that Trauberg backwards? Like, Grubwort is
Yeah.
Trauberg backwards." And he's like, and then that's when Scooby says, "You're on my side of the room." Which I wanted to ask you. You have siblings. Have you ever tried to divide your room in that like you're in my space? Probably as a
No,
kid.
but we didn't have to share rooms.
Okay,
So
valid. Yeah, no, I didn't have to share a room with my brother either, but like we definitely
I
like
would
it was like
have. I would have
yeah.
100% done that if I did.
And Scooby Doo would be on your side of the room for sure.
100%.
Yeah. Um, Now they end up searching the Trauberg house, which was confusing because I was like, okay, later we find out it's the lady's home. I thought they were going to the bait shop. No, it's her home.
Yeah.
They're just in her home chasing around the witch. And then at the end, she comes down the stairs. She's like, it's the witch. And she's my ancestor. Or,
Also,
I
I'm
was,
not mad that you broke into my home.
yeah, I was like, huh? They did do the door thing that they did in the ending of the first movie, which is always fun to see. But this is where we get the scene from the beginning where it's like, it's you. I can't
Yeah.
believe it. And then Scooby's eyes bug out. And we get scene 1, Velma. And at this point, what did you think of how they handled the reveal?
Yeah. I will say I don't think their budget was that much higher for this movie than the last one because the way the special effects like they did with the ghosts in the first one were almost identical to
Yeah.
this with the witch. I, I mean, they revealed it with a lot of time left. So it's that's very unlike Scooby movies. Usually it's like the very last thing is that you
Yeah.
find out who the bad guy is.
But then they had a 20-minute fight.
Yeah, I don't know. It didn't
Yeah.
feel very climactic.
I
Very,
think
very anticlimactic.
I think most of this movie's budget went to the effects where they like the cartoon stuff or in
Yeah.
Scooby-Doo. Getting
Yeah.
Scooby-Doo to be there and then also like to do like the cartoon CGI stuff.
Yeah, I agree.
Because like the bug out that looked actually clean. When Scooby goes into the painting, I was surprised at how clean that came out.
Yeah.
But the lady randomly is like, "Oh, you can use my scuba gear to go
Yeah.
inside."
Like, yeah.
Um, so she gives the scuba gear to them. Uh, oh, we also find out that Velma rebuilt the staff with the Moonstone and and Wanda possessed Velma just by her touching. I was like, but didn't Shaggy also touch it? Did he not ever get possessed? I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, but Haley Kyoko's quota was probably higher.
Probably.
So the Velma makes more scary frogs in the cave. Shaggy tells Velma all these like words of affirmation, like you're cute, you're funny, you're sweet, I
Yeah.
love you. And meanwhile she gets more frogs. Daphne did have a line that I thought was good writing, where she's like, "It's like biology class, but this time the frogs are dissecting
Yeah.
us." I
I know
think it
that's
could have been
funny.
cleaned up a little bit, but I think the like idea was there.
Yeah.
And then this is where Shaggy or Scooby ends up painting the thing. That was something I enjoyed, like seeing. I was
Mhm.
like, why is he painting? And then I noticed the Acme can, and I was like, oh, this is like the Looney Tunes, like
Yeah.
the Coyote and the Roadrunner. And then Velma says something about a moonlight or a shiny moon, silvery moon, sorry. And Shaggy starts singing it and unpossesses Velma. The ghost flies out. There's a piece of the staff still available, and Scooby just slams the moonstone into the rock, and Shaggy ends up kissing Velma, and they
And
realize they have no chemistry. So you can break down the scene however you like.
yeah, so first we have Daphne and Fred when they're running from the scary frog people have like a reconciliation, but it turns out they don't actually get back together. I guess that's like Fred's one redeeming scene where he owns up to some of the crappy stuff he did. I don't like that they made it seem like Daphne was just as bad as Fred. Like, look, playing games is never recommended. You do not get into situationships. Do not get in. Like, if you want a relationship and the other person is saying that you guys are something casual, use your words, say this isn't what you want, and then walk away from it. However, as someone who would play games, like I get it. Completely understand what she did, and she didn't if he hadn't done anything and she did that, okay, but he's literally going around telling their good friend Shaggy, "Oh yeah, I'm just doing the casual thing. We're just having fun. I'm all about playing the field." And so she talks to two other guys in front of him, and then he calls her like he didn't call her a slut, but he called her a cartoon. He called it what it was something like a manipulative,
A
sneaky.
stinky, yeah. He was about to say a word.
He was, but it's Cartoon Network, so he didn't. And I'm like, I don't. No, this is not the same thing. So I didn't love that they made it seem like they were doing the same thing. And
Cards
then,
up. Fred's getting my LVP. So like,
oh yeah, same, same. Sorry, my foot is cramping.
oh no.
Um, we're good. And then also, like, I'm really glad Shaggy and Velma did not end up together, but it seemed really bizarre. We just didn't get an explanation. So Shaggy's in love with her. She falls in love with him back because he proves himself to be this great person, and he says all these wonderful things about her. And then they kiss, and it's like, oh no, never mind. This just made everything crystal clear. We don't actually like each other like that. That was weird. And then also Daphne and Fred decide to stay broken up, and they are so cool about it, which I don't know about you. I don't know how old they are, if they're 16, 17. I don't know any 17-year-olds that would have been like, yeah, we went from dating and now we're fine. Now we're just gonna pretend like it never happened, and we are good friends, and we're all cool, kumbaya. That would never happen. That friendship is now, that group is ruined.
Yeah. No,
Ruined.
so it's frustrating that the loving care for the characters didn't seem to be put in this movie, and maybe that's a product of how much time, how much budget they had. But
But I do
I
like that they broke up. I did
yes,
like that, because they could have easily had them stay together, which is though why I think that there was a third movie. I think they, I don't know,
yeah.
but I did
Well,
like
the world will never know.
no.
And if honestly, if it was gonna be as bad as this one, I'm glad.
No, I don't want that. Yeah, no, 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 no.
Imagine what the multiverse where there was like 5 of these
Oh
sequels.
God,
Like,
I
oh
know.
my
No.
god. So yeah, I didn't like the fact that Velma and Shaggy kissed. Anyways, we get them back at the country club. People have started coming back to the country club. Um, they get $10,000 for solving a mystery. So like they're rewarded for
Breaking into that poor woman's house.
yes, and also like I mean, granted, the witch came back as a ghost, but like she's still we deserved reparations for that witch.
Yeah, I
Um,
think, oh, I didn't even touch on that. Yeah. I hate that the resolution to this poor woman whose land was taken from her and she was murdered. Not just like shot murdered, burned alive in front of the whole town murdered. The resolution is she's evil. We're going to kill her. She's going to go, I'm assuming, back to hell. And she's gone forever.
we're team Wanda.
And especially if we really want to get deep about it, I feel like Daphne, since Daphne's uncle owns a country club, I'm sure her ancestors like were involved in this at some
Mhm.
point.
Yep.
She's got
Well,
more money.
actually, the thing with Velma that I thought was fun, they played with the concept that Fred was like this rich, privileged white boy.
Yeah.
And do you care about spoilers?
No, not at all.
His mom ends up being the bad guy of the series or the villain,
Ooh.
and she's giving all these like kids lobotomies because they're trying to find a brain because Fred's a dumbass. So they're trying to
What?
have find a brain for them to have smart heir to the
Okay.
company.
Very
So
Get Out.
yep. There's even an episode where Fred goes to court and like they're trying to play up that he's not actually that smart. He's like a dumbass. He's like a man baby because like he has a butler cut his hot dogs for him and feed him to him. He's like the 16-year-old boy. So that like they do it with Fred, but like we all know Daphne is like, I mean, the one they go to Scotland, like her whole family has like this estate, this like
Yeah.
mansion there.
Yeah.
So and the uncle also says the line, I'm talking to my lawyers. We're going to get you incorporated so that you don't face any legal troubles, which in this movie, it calls back to the barn, which I got that when we were talking at the beginning, but also like this does answer a question that I've always had is like, where do they get the funds? Like, is there a Scooby-Doo like insurance package when they come to town?
Yeah.
Like,
And also, yeah, just keep burning people's barns and they can't sue you for it.
yeah, this movie is all about burning barns and burning people.
100%.
And then we get this Shaggy catches Scooby when he falls, and then they fall in love. And then we get the finale song, which is "I Can Be Scared with You," which had parts disco, parts hip hop, and parts like Beatles.
I'll
Like,
be honest, I didn't watch it. As soon as it started, I kind of like fast forwarded to see if there was anything. I don't know, like,
yeah,
you know, sometimes they'll show photos of like the rest
yeah.
of the summer or whatever. I was like, there's nothing in here. So
No, the
I
best
didn't
part
watch
though
it.
was like when they actually pulled out like hard copies of different DVDs of Scooby Doo because it's like that's like a
Yeah.
meta aspect. It's like we're on DVDs and cartoons and like everything you want to or some I don't know the line. But then then we get the scrapbook. The so Scooby. The last thing that you know how Scooby ends every movie with like Scooby Dooby Doo.
Yeah.
He's like they're discoing. Velma and Fred have some what is it? Rollerblading disco dancing together, and then Scooby Doo does a headstand. It like he becomes like a drill where he like cuts through the ground, and then he comes up and he's like Scooby-Doo, and then that's we get the credits in the style of his scrapbook. But that's the movie, and thank God. And I watched this twice. Granted, one
Oh,
of
yeah.
the times I watched it on 3x, but
I watched this
I
while I
literally
was dog walking. Like I
I
had
watched
my
this
phone and I
at
was watching it, but I was walking a dog.
the way I would have fallen asleep if I watched this. So I started last night. I watched like 35 minutes, and then I was like, okay. And then I went to Outback for lunch because I got basically like an employee of the month gift card for $100. So I was
Ooh,
like, I'm gonna treat myself to Outback, and
love that.
then I watched it at Outback.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, you have to be doing something else
Yeah.
simultaneously.
So I was like looking at my phone, like doing the stuff while I was like
Yeah,
listening to it.
yeah.
And then I like rewatched it. So that's why like I missed the whole plot with the paint, even on the second time. But Lindsay, we got through the movie. Any final thoughts before we get to our segments?
It just is so bad. It's so bad. There isn't one cohesive storyline. The mystery isn't even really a mystery.
Mm-hmm.
They just tried to do too much, but didn't do anything at all at the same time. Like I said, this was a fully political storyline, and just nothing came out of it except the rich people won.
Yep, as they tend to do,
Yeah.
unfortunately, except for today. If you saw the news,
Yes.
um,
Although Gwyneth Paltrow did win her, but I think she
oh,
deserved that. I think she was in the right with that one.
I forgot that she's doing, but like I'm talking about something
Oh,
else.
I know
But
what you're talking about.
okay,
Oh
good.
yeah. Yeah, no, no,
So
no.
do we want to get into the shenanigans that we do here on the Scooby Snacks and Chats
Absolutely.
podcast? Because I don't want to think about this movie unless we're trashing on it right now. So,
Yes.
so this is what we do the recap for, so that we can trash it, or if it's good, actually like give it its flower. So, right now, we're starting with the culprit game, which I had never seen this movie before, but I got it that it was
Yeah,
Velma, so I'm
Malma.
giving
Yeah.
myself a point.
Yeah.
But Lindsay, you've seen the movie before, you said?
Yeah, but I still would have
When
figured
you
it out.
watched it the first time, you also clocked it was
Yeah.
Velma?
Yeah.
All right. So that means my current score, I forget how I was doing this, Principal Deedle. So since you were the guest, we are going to do 25 to 24.5. And then because now we're averaged the scores of the previous co hosts as well as their current guests. So we've
Okay.
averaged everything out. So I'm winning by 0.5 right now because Nicole got a point last time.
Dope.
So and I had rewatched it, so I didn't remember what my original take was. So in terms of the MVPs, LVPs, we both kind of like forced our hand already. You said
Yeah.
Fred, as did I.
Yeah.
Anything you want to say about Fred's character and how why you're giving him that LVP specifically to him today?
He's just there was nothing likable about him. Even when they tried to redeem him at the end, it wasn't that great. Um he didn't add anything to the story. Like I said, he wasn't a very good friend to Shaggy. I think the potential redemption could have been him helping out Scooby. Like maybe if they had had a moment and he could have been like, dude, don't worry, we're all friends. This isn't going to change, blah, blah, blah. But there was literally not one scene in the movie that he came off as even remotely decent.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, the only other contender was really Shaggy, just because I didn't like
Well, he comes off as
Shaggy,
a loser. Like he comes
right?
off as likable, but just a complete loser.
Yeah, and then I didn't have an issue with the casting as much, but like for whatever reason, at the first 20 minutes, I was like, there was some. Oh, so there was the scene where he was asking Fred and Daphne for advice because he was like, "What if you had this friend named Scruffy who had a goatee?" No, that makes it obvious. But he's best friends with a dog, and he started with mystery. No, don't tell you're gonna like. I didn't like that. That didn't feel like
No, he just came
petty.
off
So
as
that
a
was probably the scene.
complete
Also, like,
loser.
listen, at the end of the day, Scooby's getting my MVP, but I almost considered giving him an LVP just because he bit Shaggy.
I get it. I get
But
it.
he did entertain me the most, so I had to give him that because this is not going to be based on how they solved the crime. This is going to be purely how much I enjoyed them, and Fred was not it this movie. So,
No.
who are you giving your MVP? And
I,
I mean,
I
there's not really anyone you really could give a bonus MVP to, but if you find someone, you can, I guess.
so Scooby gets my MVP too. He's by
Hell
far
yeah.
the most entertaining character. I feel like Daphne could have got it if she hadn't gone back and been like, "You're right, I was wrong," blah 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 blah, and like given Fred that vindication. But so she lost it for me there. I mean, I guess maybe the lady whose house they broke. You know what? No. I'm giving it to the witch. I'm giving it to the witch. She didn't get her
Wand of the
redemption
Witch.
arc. She did not get her redemption arc in the movie, but I'm giving her redemption arc in this podcast.
Now, I just want to check in with all the people you've given MVP. So you give Scrappy and Fred MVP, LVP for your first appearance, Velma and Shaggy for your next one, and then Velma and Daphne. So this is the first time Velma's not on the board. Oh no, that's a lie. But this is the first time you're giving Scooby a point. And I think, yeah, everyone else you've given a point to already, right?
Okay.
In some
Love that.
capacity, positive or negative.
Yeah.
So that's fun to track the Lindsay stats as well, because Lindsay is, besides like the people who have been on like for co-hosting duties, you're the most frequent appearance for the Scooby podcast, which is fun.
I
You
know. I'm
love
trying to
Scooby.
think. I do. I'm trying to think though what I could come back for.
Yeah, feel free to like. So let's look. So we have Legend of the Phantasaur, which is the next one. So if you want to break,
all of these were after my time.
Yeah, no, there are some of these that I don't even know what they're about. Like, but like, if anything, like we could probably like. So this one's dinosaurs. This one's like opera, I think.
But you know, that would be kind of fun because everything I've watched, I've been, other than this movie, like borderline expert, right? It's stuff that I remembered very vividly, or I'd seen a whole bunch. So it would be kind of fun to go in completely blind, having no idea what's going to happen.
Yeah. So I'm excited to do that because like some of these I don't have any concept of. But you can also come back for the live action Daphne and Velma. That's way in the future.
Okay. Also, Return to Zombie Island, I've never seen, and that would be a fun excuse to have to
Okay, yeah, for sure. Like you can come back anytime you want, and I hope you know that.
Thank you.
So just like text me, I'll send you the list of what we have left, and then you can always. Oh, we still have the Courage one. Oh, that's a hero. Okay. Oh, we also haven't talked about, since everything happened, that like the Scooby-Doo, the Scoob sequel, basically.
Getting canceled.
It got canceled, but now there's like apparently a bootleg online that people have found.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So maybe we can watch that.
Ooh, I'm down. I never. Yeah. So I tried to watch the original Scoob, and I was like, "You're not Matthew Lillard. I don't like. There's too many ghosts. I'm over it."
This is the arc of Matthew Lillard voicing Shaggy, though. So we do have some more Matthew Lillard, but I'll send you a list, and we can figure this out offline. But you're always welcome back.
Anytime you want. I will never say no to you. So.
Yeah, I mean, if you are busy, that's totally cool. And then this is not up to date, so I got to change all this stuff. But. Anyways, so how are you going to rate this movie, Lindsay? I want to go to you first because I already know my score. If you've been following me on Letterboxd and you saw it already, you can try to guess. But what are you giving?
I'm giving it a 0. There's not one redeeming quality about this movie. It's a 0.
So I'm going to give it a 0.25 just because I told Lisa she couldn't give it a 0. So just for consistency.
Then I'll do 0.25.
She wanted to give the Loch Ness Monster one a 0.25, but
okay, then I will do 0.25. This is the dumbest movie I've ever watched in my entire life.
In your entire life?
I mean, look, Zac Efron's We Are Your Friends is a close second, but that's at least a fun hate watch. Like, this is not fun.
Yeah, no, there were fun moments, but this is not fun. So that's like
were they actually fun, or did they just seem fun compared to what
it's like going through? Is it just like the one like good part of like a bad pie?
Exactly.
So this is not my least favorite Scooby-Doo project, just because I think there were parts that were watchable. As you all know, the Scooby-Doo project got a 0.25. No, probably most of you don't know. Scooby-Doo Meets the Boo Brothers, 0.75. I think I enjoyed watching parts of this movie more than I enjoyed. The Boo Brothers was very much a slog for me. I ended up giving this a 1.5. And my reasoning is, out of 5 stars, I gave half a star for Scooby-Doo entertaining me, half a star for me as a fan and as a film person appreciating what they were going for with like the meta commentary, the live action cartoon stuff, and then half a star for how laughably bad the last scene was, the last musical number, which you skipped, so you didn't even experience.
Which I maybe would have gone up a little bit had I
don't think so. I think you would have like hated it so much that you wouldn't have even appreciated it. And the only thing that you might have given it 0.25 more for the DVDs that you saw, like, oh, Alien Invaders is there. Like that. But and so that is why I give it a 1.5.
And as much as I don't like Alien Invaders, or which one is it Alien Invaders I didn't like?
Yes, I think.
Yeah.
You love the Nutcracker too.
I do. As much as I don't like Alien Invaders, there is a nostalgia factor to me. The storylines at least seemed on par with the characters that we grow to love. There is nothing about this movie that triggers joy.
And also, I only give it a 1.5 because Letterboxd wouldn't let me give 1.25, which is what I wanted to give it. So actually, I'm going to change it to 1.25 because
Okay,
that's how I
there you go.
feel. Oh, we have a tie for the worst place.
Ooh.
This is tied with Arabian Nights for the average score of 0.75, which I think
Wow.
is fun. But I think Arabian Nights is like a worse movie. I think it's more watchable probably, but it's more offensive. So, but this one's also kind of offensive. Not in the same
What?
way though. Not like depicting different cultural groups as
Ooh.
like bad people, but yeah.
Yeah.
But that is it for this movie, Lindsay, in terms of our segments. Is there anything else you want to say about this movie, or do you want us to stop talking about it so that you can go and protect your peace and never think
I'm
about this movie again?
I'm glad that things worked out for Robbie Amell and Haley Kiyoko.
Yes.
Yes, I said it.
And also, the best part of this movie is that I got to meet your Scooby-Doo friend for this
Yes.
podcast. That is what I'm going to take away from this podcast. Another fun chat with Lindsay and Scooby-Doo appearing on the podcast for the first time ever.
Yes.
Wait, oh my god, I have a Scooby-Doo too.
Heyo. Oh, that's
He's
a
not
very cute.
as big and as huggable as yours, but
No. Still
um
cute.
anyways, Lindsay, what's next for you? What are you doing these days? What do you want to plug? Also, I like to ask all my guests to give a pop culture plug of something they're watching, listening to, consuming outside of the Scooby-Doo franchise or whatever piece of media we discuss on that episode.
Yeah, so I'm still doing all the Bronco podcasting writing. If you're a Broncos fan, feel free to look up Be Crushed podcast, wherever it is that you listen to podcasts. And if you listen on Apple, feel free to give us a 5-star
Yeah,
review.
I love the fact that it's two women talking about
Oh,
football.
yeah, it's so fun. It's so
Like,
fun. And then
yeah,
you have people who are like willing to come on because they're like, oh, I want
like
to support them.
Gandia.
Yeah, like Gandia. Oh boy. um, and then so you can follow me on Twitter at Lindsay Bebo, and that's Bebout. Now for pop culture, what am I watching right now? I Ted Lasso and Abbott.
Okay.
I just finished Shrinking. That just ended.
Oh, I
That
need to
was
catch up on
so
Shrinking. So I
good.
watched the first couple episodes and then I was like, I'll wait for them to stack. But right
Oh
now I'm
yeah,
trying to catch
no.
up on Succession because I've never seen that before. But I
Yeah.
need to get back on Shrinking. Shrinking was really good when I watched it. I think it's more of a binge show than a weekly though.
Yeah, I'm the person though. I mean, I like
I
the
enjoy a weekly watch, but like for a half-hour show, I like to watch more than one episode.
that makes
So
sense.
I sometimes will stack like Abbott. I usually stack episodes,
Yeah.
like do 3 to 4 at a time. But sorry, I interrupted you.
No,
Shrinking and Ted
no, no.
Lasso?
So probably Shrinking and Ted Lasso. Well, Shrinking ended, so I'm back on Ted Lasso, and then Abbott Elementary always.
Okay. Yeah. No, great picks. I need to catch up on Ted Lasso because it's been 3 episodes and I haven't seen a single one yet. And Shrinking I need to finish, but right now I'm trying to power through Succession. My goal was to catch up by episode 2. I have 9 episodes left until I catch up, but
Well,
I don't know if I can. I don't know how much time I'm gonna have tonight to watch any, so I might have to. I had a plan to do 333, but we'll see what happens. In terms of me, you can follow the Brazilian Dragon podcast on all social media platforms, including our new YouTube channel. So if you're at all listening to this and you want to help us out on the YouTube spaces, give us a like and subscribe. That would be appreciated. At Brazil Dragon Pod on Twitter, Facebook. I think I'm on Facebook. For TikTok, Instagram. Instagram is where it's mostly at, but I will retweet every episode I do on my main page as well. In terms of myself, you can follow me at What the Fleep on all social media, including Venmo if you want to support the arts of podcasting. Anything that I get from the listener will go straight into podcasting. It won't go into like DoorDash, I promise you. I am interested in starting a Patreon at some point. I just don't think it's worth it at this point. I don't know what incentives I have to think about it and have a conversation with myself. We are also working towards getting a Discord going for Brazilian Dragon, and I'm excited about that. But you can also, if you are in the Southern California area, I am performing at Flappers, a new set on April 16th at 5. Wait, did I not text you, Lindsay?
did not.
My bad. I will be texting you right after this with the link. I'll send it to you, Brett and Jessica. It's another Sunday night at 5, a new stand-up set, 6 minutes. which Lindsay has done 15, which I don't know how she did that.
I don't
But
either.
she's a very funny queen.
Oh,
But in terms of iTunes, same thing Lindsay said, or Apple Podcasts. 5 stars, ratings, and reviews are much appreciated. Even if you don't give 5 stars, just give me a rating and review because it still helps.
I think I
Um,
gave you one. I'm pretty sure
yeah, I will double check and make sure I give you one too. And if not, we'll just do a little pod on pod review after. But lastly, in terms of my pop culture plug, what do I want to plug? Listen, it's been a minute since I plugged my girl Riri. Her performance at the Oscars was incredible, but more importantly, let's have a throwback plug. Good Girl Gone Bad, one of the best albums ever, in my opinion.
It's great.
But also, you can enjoy whatever media is speaking to you right now, and hopefully, it's the Brazilian Dragon.
Hell yeah.
Lindsay, we made it through Curse of the Lake Monster. Thank God,
Yeah,
because that's the best part. Shitting on a bad movie.
absolutely.
Made it all worth it. But next up will be Legend of the Phantasaur. If you have any feedback for the Brazilian Dragon, you can tweet at either myself or Lindsay or any of the myriad of guests that we have at Brazil Dragon Pod or my main at What the Fleep. You can email Felipe at BrazilianDragonPodcast.com or BrazilDragonPod@gmail.com. Also, What You Doing will be coming back soon, and Gravity Bros on the Dragon Babies feeds. 2 Can't Keep a Secret right now is on hiatus. We have a lot of things going on right now. So with all that said, how do you feel about the hashtag Wanda the Witch?
Love it.
All right. We want justice for Wanda. And with that said, Lindsay, any final things?
Nope. Thank you
No.
again for having me, though.
Thank you for joining me, Lindsay. Thank you for joining me, Scooby. And until next time, everyone, obrigado for listening. Bye.
Bye.